everyone. Welcome to Prep Station Government UTME class. Today, we'll be looking at tricks, tips on how you can make success in UTME Government class. So, let's go to the next slide and see how you can achieve these. Number one, I will advise my students to do this. Early study preparation. If you're writing UTME government, you don't start preparing that year. It's wrong. You begin from the previous year. If possible, the beginning of the previous year, you start studying. Whether you're working or you're a student, you must create time to study. Number two, you must have a sound knowledge / mastery of the subjects. Yes, we will say government is broad. There are many topics to talk about. Oh, it's too broad. You must create time. And most times I advise my students to start with the SS1 topics. The SS1 topics, we start from the simple to the complex. So start with the SS1 topics. Give yourself time from the first term, second term, down to the SS3, third term. Because most of the topics, they bring topics from all classes. It's not just SS1 and SS2 alone. So you must have sound knowledge about the subject. Then the third one, study UTME past questions. Study past questions. Study them. Then before you study past questions, there are some things that changes in government. Let me give you an example. Maybe they ask you, who is the Secretary General of the ECOWAS? And the Secretary General of the ECOWAS of 2002 cannot still be the same Secretary General of the ECOWAS in 2022 or 2023. So you should know your dates. Be familiar with your dates. Now, in 2002, in 2001, we're talking about OAU. Yes. Organization of African Unity. We know now that there's nothing like OAU. Again, what we have is African Union. So you should keep abreast with changes like this in government. So you should you should be knowledgeable about these things. Then the fourth one, concepts. Have a good knowledge about the concepts. Yes, if you check your government textbooks, you see the start with basic concept of government, you must know them. You shouldn't cram. You shouldn't cram the basic concept. You shouldn't be cramming democracy, meaning of democracy, characteristics of, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You should know them, have them on your fingertips. Then, again, you should also have a deep understanding. You know, government is broken in different types. Let's talk about constitutional development in Nigeria. When we talk about constitutional development in Nigeria, you know we're starting from the Clifford Constitution of 1922 to the Richards Constitution of 1946 to the Macpherson Constitution of 1951 and the Lexington Constitution of 1954. So you should know this. These are concepts. You should know this. You should be able to know the features, the characteristics, what led to the failure of each of these constitutional development. You should be able to know their failures, their successes. These are the things you should know. That's why I said you have to have understanding of the concepts. Understanding of the concepts is key. Now let's look at another aspect. Still talking about this number 4. Now, when we talk about international organization, when you have the the United Nations, you have ECOWAS, you have OAU, you have the OPEC, you shouldn't mix them together. You should know their aims and objectives. Yes, they may relate, there may be some similarities, but don't get yourself confused. You should know them. You should be able to identify which is for which. If this aim and objective is for the United Nations, or this aim and objective is for the Commonwealth. So these are the things you should take note of. Yes, you say ECOWAS and African Union. Oh, there are similarities. Yes, but but you should be able to understand their differences. Don't mix them up. Don't mix them up. Begin by knowing why their historical background. After that, their aims and objectives, why were they formed, why were they established. Then you talk about their challenges and their success stories. These are the things. Then the ones that have several organs. For example, the United Nations, where you have the General Council, General Assembly, the Board of Trustees and all that. You should know all this. You should know the aims, the functions of the Secretary General and all that. So don't mix them up. They may sound familiar, they may be similar, but they are different. Please take note of this. Then, ask questions on topics you don't understand. Ask questions. Yes, there are topics that students still find difficult in government. Some students will tell you, oh, I can't cram the date. There are so many dates to cram. You shouldn't cram the date. You should, when you know the topic, when you know the subject, when you know the topic, you should know the dates. So not cramming. Not cramming. You should be able to know, okay, like I just used the Clifford Constitution and all that. You should know the dates. You should. You should be able to know the republics. So this is what we're talking about. Have an understanding. Ask questions when you don't understand this. Ask questions. Ask questions. Then the last one. This one is coming because I have seen that it works. Study with your peers. Study with your peers. Look for people like you that are writing UTME governments. As a teacher, I've come to know that learning with peers, when students learn with themselves, when they study together, they are able to assimilate more. So it's a good thing. So I would advise you to study with your peers. Create a study group. Not 1 month or 2 months to the examination, you're running helter-skelter, looking for who you will study with. No. When I say study with your peers, you also have your own personal study time. So this does not take the place of your own personal study time. And remember, before you study with your peers, you cannot give what you don't have. Because everybody will be sharing an idea, bringing what they have been able to study and discuss over time. So you must study with your peers. Some of you will say, oh, I'm no longer in school. I just finished. Look for somebody that is also sitting for UTME government. You may say you're working. Create time to study with people that are writing the subject with you. So I hope I've been able to explain ways you can achieve success in UTME government. I don't say government is difficult. It's not difficult. To say government is broad, it's not broad. It's just you creating time to study and having mastery of the subject. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next slide. Let's see what we'll be learning today. Okay, we'll be looking at those 3 topics. The first one is parliamentary system of government. When you hear parliamentary system of government, what comes to your mind? Okay? Okay. All right. When we talk about parliamentary system of government, it's a system of government whereby the head of government is different from the head of state. I'm just making it simple for you. Then we'll look at it. Where the head of government is different from the head of state. Nigeria does not practice this system of government. But Nigeria practiced this system of government in 1963. 1963 was when Nigeria became a republic. That was when Nigeria practiced this system of government. Let's go to the next slide and let's see. Okay, let's have a definition. It said, this can be defined as one in which the head of state is different from the head of government, like I said earlier. It's different. Now, the head of state is the ceremonial president. What does he do? He assents bills. I'm giving you an example. Assents his signature and all that. While the head of government is the prime minister. A typical example of this system of government, we'll be looking at the United Kingdom. Britain runs a parliamentary system of government. Now we have the king, not the queen. The king is the head of government. The head of state. The king is the head of state. He is the ceremonial head. While the prime minister is the one that is in charge of the day-to-day running of the government. So take note of this. It says, okay, let's go. It says countries that practice this system are Britain, Israel, Italy, and Nigeria practiced this system in the First Republic. In the First Republic, Nnamdi Azikiwe was who? The ceremonial president. Tafawa Balewa was what? The prime minister. You remember? My government students, you should remember this. So, now let's look at the features and characteristics of a parliamentary system of government. Features, characteristics of a parliamentary system of government. Okay. Number one, it says, the head of state is different from the head of government. Nigeria does not practice this system. Nigeria practices a presidential system of government. As for looking at this, I'll be giving you a difference between the parliamentary system of government and the presidential system of government. So Nigeria practices a presidential system of government. Who is the head of government? We all know President Muhammadu Buhari. He's the GCOR and he's the head of government. He's the head of government and he's the head of state. He's in charge. While the parliamentary system of government, it doesn't happen like that. You have a head of government and a head of state differently. In Nigeria, the president is the head of the armed forces, the military in Nigeria, but it's not so over there. Then the second said, the head of state is the ceremonial president, and the head of government is the prime minister. Now look at the prime minister performs executive functions. Now let me explain to you. In the parliamentary system of government, the executive and the legislature are fused together. In a presidential system of government, it's not so. The president of Nigeria is the head of the executive, you know that. Why? The Senate president is the head of the National Assembly, the head of the Senate, where we have the Speaker of the Federal House of Assembly. Do you understand? So, but here in the parliamentary system of government, the Prime Minister performs both the executive function. He's a member of the legislature, he's the head of the executive, and he's also in the House. So there's fusion of powers. Look at it there. And it says members of parliament are also members of the executive. That was what I was explaining. They are also members, but it's not like that in Nigeria. In the presidential system of government, the members of the executive are not members of the legislature. Do you understand? So take note of this. Then number 6, it says collective responsibilities. Now, it says members of the cabinet are collectively responsible to the parliament. It doesn't happen so. Because the members here are both in the parliament and they are also in the executive. And remember, the head is the prime minister. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now we're looking at another topic. We're looking at the African Union. Before we go looking into the African Union, let's talk a little about the OAU. The OAU. Remember the OAU? Organization of African Unity. Organization of African what? Unity. The OAU was established in May of 1963. It's one of the major reasons why the OAU was established. At that time, colonialism was still in existence. So one of the reasons was that countries in Africa will break free and gain their independence, break free from their colonial masters and gain their independence. Okay, let's go for a short break. We'll be back shortly. So stay tuned. Thank you.